Welcome back.
Today, again, I'm most pleased to be joined by our co-host, Deborah Reynolds, who is the founder and president of About Face Image Consulting. Deborah will be asking our exclusive guest a handful of questions about energy medicine that could benefit you in the audience. Welcome, Deborah.
Moreno, it's always a pleasure to be here.
We're also very excited to be joined by our special guest, Mala Singh, who is a holistic scientist. Welcome, Mala.
It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
We can't wait to learn more about the 3 hidden energy drains that rob women of their peace and power. I will now introduce our guest, whom many of you already know, with a few relevant and compelling highlights. Mala has worked as a professional engineer, project manager, researcher in automotive and aerospace engineering. She entered the field of energy medicine 10 years ago after the transformation of her own health served as a catalyst for her own personal empowerment. She studied energy medicine and Qigong and holds a bachelor's degree in holistic sciences. She is the founder of Pain to Peace Roadmap and the Peace and Power programs. She works with women who are overgivers and overachievers, experiencing massive overwhelm and chronic tension and pain. She helps them break free from overwhelm and guilt so they have better focus and more energy for their needs without giving their peace and power away. Now, if you are an attendee with a question, add it to the chat, and Mala is going to address your question at the end. This is going to be a spellbinding session. Deborah, take it away.
Thank you. Mala, I'm really excited to have you here. I'm also really excited about the concept of a holistic engineer. So tell us, how did you get into energy and mindset work from having studied and worked for over a decade in engineering?
Thank you, Deborah. Quite unexpectedly, not planned. But, life has a way of, bringing us on a path. And to give you a little background, I was working as an engineer and made leaps and bounds, was promoted before my 30s. And that came with a lot of responsibility. Responsibility that I had really no experience in managing people. I love the technical aspect. So managing people and this job took me away, a lot of travel, and I literally burned the candles on both ends. So in my professional life and managing my personal relationships. And it was kind of like the perfect storm where it became too much and I became, not surprisingly, sick. I developed a chronic lung condition. And that meant, as a young woman, not being able to climb, to do the things, doing adventurous things. Literally, I couldn't go up the stairs without having to stop. And that would exhaust me. So I went looking for answers. And that brought me on my healing path. And there was a pivotal moment where I experienced energy. And that opened up a whole lot of other doors for me. It was down a rabbit hole, so to speak. It led me to energy medicine. And I understood why those particular stresses that I was facing hit me in my lungs. So I was able to connect those pieces together. And I didn't accept the diagnosis that this was how my life was going to be. I learned the energy medicine tools, the Qigong, did my degree in holistic sciences, all still while working as an engineer. Never thought I would deviate from this path. And I healed myself, wasn't on medication anymore. I started helping people in my close inner circle. And then that's how my path really revealed itself. And I switched to holistic sciences, being an energy medicine mindset practitioner, because now I understood the pieces that were key in healing the body.
That is such a beautiful story. And I love how that connection of that stress and the element of energy affected you physically in a very specific way with your lungs. Fascinating.
Absolutely. It's eye-opening. And then you make the connection between mind and body, right? As an engineer, you learn to think with the analytical left brain, and you need to see and prove everything. And there's another world that now is being revealed through technology. Now we can see energy, we can capture. And so I think energy medicine is becoming more mainstream, more accepted. There's a lot of meta studies being done, and it just validates what that ancient knowledge that was already available to us.
So tell us, why is it that overgivers and overachievers seem to actually give away their peace and power?
Yes, so these are two specific groups that I understand very well. And what these two groups have in common is they push their mind and body to their limits, right? To their physical limits, to their mental limits. So givers are usually nurturers. They value peace, no conflict. And so they really give their power away by not having their own needs met, right? So they're over giving. And then overachievers validate themselves through their work, and they become workaholics. So they get kind of cut off from their feelings, whereas overachievers, over pleasers rather, they have too much feeling, and they can't separate their needs from other people's needs.
Wow, that is fascinating because I could see myself in both of those arenas. And I've really worked hard to overcome those things. And you and I have been talking for a while. So tell us, what is it that are the top 3 energy drainers?
Okay, so there are many, but the specific to the overgivers and the overachievers, I would say one of the hidden one is that we take on other people's worries and struggles, and it's sort of like taking on water on board, right? And your ship is going to sink when we do that. And so from an energetic point of view, we have this biofield around us. It's kind of like our personal shield, and some people may call it the aura. And when we're healthy, it's fluffy, we're well protected. And then when we take on other people's worries and struggles, our shield gets it gets holes. It doesn't protect us. It gets thin, and that can actually drain our own power. If you watch Star Trek, you'll know, power up the shields, right? To protect from invasion from external circumstances and the environment. And that is one that I see how we drain it. And you can be in company, conscious or unconsciously. Somebody may be well-intentioned, but their energy now can take your energy down. And there's specific things that we can do for that. The second energy drain that I see is in relationships. So, and the specific aspect of communicating, we all have different sensory styles. So somebody may be a kinesthetic, feels more, and somebody may be predominantly a digital. So think of like a Star Trek, engineer, up in their heads mostly. And so when a kinesthetic in a conflict or a discussion tries to have a conversation or communicate with a digital, it's like they're speaking two of foreign languages, and they can say, but I was so clear in what I said, but the information is not taken in the same way, right? So that's another way we give our power away. The third aspect is in decision making, and this affects all groups. Making decisions based on our values, right? So if you don't, decisions can rob our power, because if we don't make the right ones, then we don't spend the time, we misplace how we spend time and energy, basically. And that's a big one for most people.
I would agree. That is a huge one for a lot of people,
Yes.
especially when their values and the decision making are not aligned. Everybody has different values, so that can create a lot of conflict and a lot of problems. I can see that.
Conflict, and you spend your time doing something that doesn't even matter to you, you know, and you waste your energy and time. Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell us, what are the top 3 myths around that are keeping the overachievers and the overgivers stuck in the overwhelm?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Deborah. One myth that I see is we should be making more lists, right? Making more lists and schedules. And that on one level can help, but it's not the fundamental issue, right? The second myth that I see is multitasking, right? And when we multitask, we split our energy and focus. And so if you think of rowers in a boat, if they don't work together in getting to the end line, the goal, you're not going to work as efficient. You're not going to meet your goal. And so multitasking is something that hyper or overachievers use a lot, right? Let's make the most out of it. But you're splitting your attention, focus, and eventually you don't end up working as well. So another myth is, this is particular for the overachiever, is that they feel that if they don't help or take an action, help anybody or do this task, that things are going to fall apart. That that causes a lot of anxiety to them, but it's a myth, right? And they feel so bad because they feel, if I put my needs ahead of others, I'm a bad person. And then the third myth is, I'm not going to ask for help. I don't need the help. And that's a big one that I see in a lot of women.
I would agree that that aspect of it could be interpreted different ways, where people are needing the help and they're needing the support, but they're afraid to do it because they perceive it's a form of weakness, when in fact it's not. When in fact everybody in a business or in an organization or different environments that you're in has their own gifts or talents or areas of expertise or strengths, and we really want to leverage that. So being able to ask, I think, it's a huge gift when we can have, develop that ability within us to take the fear away, to ask for help.
Absolutely. And there's deeper issues why we don't feel comfortable asking for help, right? So
yeah, beautiful. So tell us, what are a couple of simple things that can help women have more energy and less tension in the body and better focus?
Okay, so one of the fundamental things, concepts that I want to stress here is grounding energy. We live in a society where it's all about planning and scheduling. Time is short, and what happens is we become top heavy right here. The energy gets stuck. And so when we can't connect the energy throughout our body, communication doesn't happen. We start to feel the stress and the tension. So doing things like Qigong Meditation is also there. Qigong is moving meditation. And usually it's very difficult for somebody who lives in their head to sit down quietly and meditate. So Qigong is a nice alternative to have. So when you can ground the energy from top to bottom, you're going to get clearer. You're going to be able to focus better. And when you focus better, you can have more awareness, specifically what is motivating you to take certain actions, or how do you feel. So connecting the mind and the body is fundamental. Once you free up that energy that's stuck here, you have more energy available to reach your goals or what it is that you want to do, right? So freeing up energy is big, and that's what grounding does. The next question that I find is helpful is asking, are the responsibilities that I have taken on, are they mine? Is it my responsibility? Or am I enabling someone else's lack of responsibility? So really, is it serving their growth, or is it stunting your growth, right? Just asking that question. Once you have that clarity, you've grounded the mental energy, you'll get some answers there. And the third one comes back to decision making, right? So it's one of the most important life skills I think we need to learn, and because our decisions determine our destiny. It's as simple as that. And when we're not in touch with our own needs, we don't feel deserving. We don't live life, life lives us. And so I have a 5-step proprietary process that I use for decision making. The old traditional way was using the left brain, analytical, logical. And now we're trying to take a whole brain approach. So we want to align the 3 brains, the head, the heart, and the gut. And those 3 things can help us make particularly empowering decisions. And there's 3 questions I would like to leave people with when looking at decision making. Is it your decision to make? Particularly, is it yours to make? And what happens if you don't make that decision? And really looking at your core values. The decision that you make, am I betraying my values? Because one decision may be right for one person, but not the other person. And so it's a very personal decision. It can't just be based on analytics, and there's a whole other process, do you have all the information, facts, and so on. But those top 3 are the ones I think can help steer someone to make a decision that will really propel them forward towards what they want to experience: more peace, more power.
Those are really 3 powerful questions. And I love the fact that you're drawing in those 3 brains, like the head, the heart, the gut, which is really, really critical. It's such a unique concept because a lot of us haven't heard of the 3 brains and how all 3 of those elements fit together, and how we need to pay attention to what's going on in all 3 areas.
Absolutely.
Oh, beautiful. So we have a last question for you, which is, what are the core elements of your peace and power blueprint that help women own their energy and health again?
Yeah, so it's really putting together everything that we talked about, Deborah. So some of the elements include really uncovering someone's unique peace and energy drainers. And I have 6 assessments, and we do kinesiology testing. So you can bypass what you think is your energy drainer. The body doesn't lie. We do a lot of testing there. You learn how to recharge your batteries, your energetic batteries, so to speak. We learn how to clear your inner resistance. So what type of energy personality are you, and what are those specific resistances that you feeling, that you actually experience, and that's stopping you from experiencing more peace and power. So we learn to reprogram the mind as well. You're going to master powerful decision making, and you're going to learn productivity and scheduling tools in a little bit of a different way that is being taught in corporate, right? So making sure you put some white space in your calendar. That's not something we typically do, right? We fill it, but can you have white space is also a good thing. So those are the core elements.
Those are all really important things that we need to take into consideration. I love how you've blended that together under an umbrella of peace and power, because women need this, definitely.
Absolutely. Peace,
Yeah.
if you do something that costs you your peace, it's too expensive. So that's my motto.
Thank you, Mala. This has really been most enjoyable.
Thanks so much, Deborah.
And I'm going to be turning it back to you, Moreno.
Mila, that was 30 minutes of abundant value from you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I have one or two questions I would like to ask you. You said that our energy is limited, and what we do with that limited energy is we share it with others to help. And one solution is to share less of that energy. In other words, help fewer people. What about increasing one's energy? How would one increase?
Absolutely, Maria. That's a really good question. So with limited energy, I mean, we can always top up and get more. There is infinite energy. And some of the sources that we tap into, energy sources, are food, healthy, healing foods, the internal environment, the thoughts that you think. We can free up clear up the internal environment. Then there's the external environment, being out in nature. There's so much energy that we can take in to fill ourselves up. So there's no problem giving energy in a conscious, intentional way, but we also have to fill that back up.
You're right. The way to increase our energy is to look after our mental and physical health. Yes.
You got it.
How do we minimize making decisions?
Oh, I love that question. How do we minimize making decisions? By really getting clear on what matters to us. And saying, am I making this decision for me? Or am I making this decision for other people? And coming back to, is it my decision to make? Sometimes we think it's our decision to make, and really it isn't.
Yes.
So
add to that, what we need to do is learn to say no more often.
No, or maybe not yet. Not yet. As you can tell, I have a hard time saying no sometimes. I'm the first to admit that.
Now, you and I have both been project managers in the past, and you appreciate the importance of being able to say no.
Absolutely.
Because people ask us to do things all the time, and we need to say no.
Absolutely. And Maureen, I'll just tell you a really quick story here. When I was promoted to a department manager, and I had to push against production, and the first my mentor said, I want to teach you how to say no. And even if you stop production or manufacturing, you have to back it up, but you have to be able to say no. And so that's the first thing I learned how to do it. But when it comes to our own personal issues, our own personal circumstances, we have those blind spots because we're conflicting priorities. Whereas at work, you have one priority.
Yes, that is a very important habit to learn. One final question I have, Marla, is it's very important to plan our lives. Should we plan everything?
I would say plan, but be flexible. because if we plan and there's the known, you leave no room for something better to show up, something unexpected that could be better to show up. Plan, if that gives you more peace, and it comes down to the individual. Some people want more planning than others, and that's fine. But if it gives you more peace, do so. But I always say, build in flexibility. Life is about flow as well.
I like that, those words,
Perhaps,
flexibility and flow.
perhaps
Yes.
we need to plan for a little bit of spontaneity every now and then.
Yes,
Yes.
only one thing needs to be certain and fixed, and that is our goals. We need to know where we're going. As for how to get there, our plan, I agree with you, it needs to be flexible because things change all the time.
Yes. And not everything is in our control. Actually, there is so little in our control except of what we're going to do and react. But there's very little, and so we decide how we're going to proceed forward.
Those are all the questions I have. Deborah, do you have any?
I think that's a wrap, my friend.
Sounds good. Marla, those are all the questions we have for you.
Thank you so much. It's been delightful.
Thank you so much for sharing your distinctiveness and knowledge. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us, Marla.
My pleasure.
Deborah, once again, thank you so much for co-hosting our You Now Online Live, where we give small business owners the opportunity to easily and quickly increase their visibility, exposure, and influence. Deborah.
My pleasure. Wonderful guest. Thank you, Mala. Really been an important topic today.
To our attendees, a big thank you. Now it is your opportunity to be next on You Now Online Live. It is easier than you think. Start increasing your visibility, exposure, and influence the quick and easy way. The application link is in the chat and the description of this event. In the meantime, to your continued success and good health, goodbye until we meet again next time.